PHP edit records demo. So this is actually a continuation or an enhancement of the previous demos. One of the first demos before this is the listing of records of a table from a database, and also listing of the records from the database may be displayed in cards. And in the previous demo also, in some of the previous demo, I have something that is very similar to this one, that is to add records to a table of a database. And this one now is to continue with that program and to add the edit record facility. So again, this is to enhance the previous program where a list of employees were displayed on screen and has the capability to add records to the table of the database. This video, aside from the features mentioned, will include the feature to edit records of the table of the database. This demo needs 3 files, so at least 3 files. A front-end file listing the employees and displaying the form to be used in adding records and editing records, and 3 back-end files or PHP files. One of this file is to list the employees, another is to get an employee record. So why do we need this? Because if we're going to edit, we need to retrieve the record and to be displayed on the screen, and then we can make changes, the user can make changes, and want to save the changes to the table of the database. The file to list employees will no longer be discussed in this video since this was discussed in the previous video. So this file is a file that makes use of JSON to retrieve the records from a table. So after retrieving the records from a table, it is converted to its JSON string format. So please check the previous videos. So again, one of the file is a PHP file or a backend file to save records. In this demo, the file name of this file is the saveemp.php. So create the PHP file to insert the record to the table or database. So if we're going to do this program, so we have to create the PHP file, and the PHP file contains the following. One is to connect to the database, then determine the mode. So in my program, 1 is for adding and 2 is for editing. Then retrieve the data from the form. So in the front end we have a form, and then how do we retrieve the data from that form? Then prepare the SQL statement, bind the parameters, execute the SQL statement, and then close the connection. So these are more or less the contents of the file to save records. So let's discuss them one by one. One is to connect the database. So in connecting to the database, all we need is we should know the host or the server name, the username and the password, and of course the database name. So your host username may not be the same, but more or less these are the information that we need for us to be able to connect to the database. So to connect to the database, we make use of the MySQL function, or yes, it's a function, and it is actually used to create a new connection object. So this is an object, that's why we have here the new keyword. And then again, another part of the program is to retrieve the data from the form. So we can use $ post or get, or for more flexible way is to make use of request, so that we can use both get and post. So these are the data coming from the form, and these values here should be corresponding to the name attribute of your input form. So you should check this one. Again, these values should correspond to the name property or name attribute of your input form from your front end program. And then the next one is to prepare, so determine the mode, prepare, bind, and execute. So here we're going to test the mode. This one is already discussed on the previous program. So we're going to test if the mode is equal to 2, and that's for editing. So if it is equal to 2, how do we update the record? So we use the update statement. So the statement here should be update amp set ename equals, so whatever be the value of ename, depno equals whatever the value, salary, whatever the value, commission is equal to whatever the value. And what we're going to change is only for that employee where employee number is equal to whatever the value is. So again, the question mark here are what we call the parameters. So this is just a statement. So we're going to prepare this statement. So prepare, bind, and execute. So to prepare, we should use the connection object and then the prepare function, and then we place here the prepare or the statement to be prepared. And that creates also another object. Then the next thing is to bind the parameters. So the parameters are again these question marks here. So the first parameter is ename, which is a string, so that's why we have it S, and $ename will be the value to be provided for that parameter. And then the second parameter is depno, which is actually an integer, and the variable depno will be the variable to be used to supply the value. And then we also have salary for salary, which is double, commission for this one, commission is also double, and empno, which is an integer for this parameter. That's why we have SIDDI. So after we bind, we execute the statement, and after this we close the connection, which is already not shown in the image, but anyway, that's a short command. So just place here the connection, then close connection. Then we also have another file to get the employee information. So for this demo, the file name I use is the getempinfo.php. So this PHP file is needed to retrieve the record or information of an employee for editing. The contents of the file will be the following. So first, connect to the database, get the employee number. So we are going to retrieve a single employee though, so we need the employee number. Then prepare the SQL statement using where clause to retrieve a specific record. So we should have a where clause because we're going to retrieve only a single record, so there should be a condition. Then we bind the parameters, execute the SQL statement. Then we get the result set, retrieve the row, and output the row in JSON format. So when we retrieve the row, we place the row in an array so that we can use a function to convert that array into JSON string format. Then we close the connection. So again, the first part is to connect to the database. So just like in the previous slide, we need the host, the username, the password, and the database name. And then once we have these four values, we can use a MySQL to create a connection object. And then the next step is to get the employee number. So here we have a text box maybe in our front end with the name attribute equal to empno. So once we open this file, so to retrieve that value, we use the $request or $post or $get, depending on what you use in your form. So after this, we save that in a variable, and we just test if employee number is not empty. So if it is not empty, we prepare the statement. So we just retrieve that particular record with this employee number. So select asterisk from emp, where empno is equal to question mark. So this will be our parameter. And then, so if we use the connection prepare, then we have prepared the statement stored in this object, SQL object. Then the next step is to bind parameters. SQL bind parameter. So we have one parameter, employee number, which is actually an integer, and the value that we'll be providing will be empno. So taken from this value. So empno. Then once we retrieve the records, or once we have prepared the statement rather and then bind, next is we execute the SQL statement. So SQL execute. After we execute the select statement, then it will produce a result set. So to get the result set, we use the method get result, just like what we have done in our list program in the previous demos. So get result is stored in results. So again, this contains a result set. So we can imagine the result set to be like a table, consists of rows and columns. But in this particular example, you notice that we use a select statement and where empno is equal to the parameter. And empno is actually the primary key. So actually, this is just for formality purposes, or maybe just to be safe, but here we are more or less expecting that there will only be a single row because we use a primary key. So nevertheless, we create an array, we use a loop. Again, this will only actually loop once, then result fetch a sock, so that this will retrieve one row and we store the row inside the array. Then after that, the contents of the array now is converted to its JSON string format. Then we close the connection. Now let's proceed to our front-end file. So the front-end file contains the following main parts of the program. We have the BS4 card container where the list of employee will appear. The list now includes the edit button for every record. A modal dialog form where user will enter data. So just like what we have done in the add records. Jquery to list employee, we have done this also in the previous example. Jquery to retrieve a record when edit button is pressed. And Jquery to save or submit the data entered on the form or to update the changes. So we have the card. So the card here will be this list will be displayed here in this division, and then we just place here the add button. But also, if you're going to look at the appearance of the card and the list, we have here these buttons. So we have the edit button here and the delete button, but we'll not be explaining the delete button yet. So this is what is new with this front-end program. Then of course we have the modal dialog. So the same with the previous one, there are no changes here. So this is where the form is displayed. Note that the user interface used for the form is hidden. So it is still hidden here inside the modal body to show the code of the modal dialog. So there's also a video for Jquery, my Jquery tutorial on how to create modal dialog, just in case you want to review. Okay, but here the code is also shown here. So the form tag specifies the method. So the method here is post that will be used in passing the data when the form is submitted using the submit button. And when we submit, it will we're going to use the Jquery to submit the form or to specify what file will be used. And then this is our dialog. So we have here the label and then the input boxes. So take note that here we have empno, ename. So these are the name attributes, and we should take note of the name attributes because these are the names that we'll be using in retrieving the values in our backend files. And I have shown you that in the previous example. So the modal body contains the user interface elements of the form. So this was collapsed in the previous slide. Excuse me. Now in listing the employee, as you have seen in the excuse me, in the previous demo, there are now we have a column for action, and there are two buttons. So these are actually the buttons inside that cell. So button, type button, and then we added here employee number is equal to data I empno. So whatever the employee number is, we have to place that as a value of this attribute. Then class edit button, button primary, I class. So this is a font. This will display the edit icon. So slash button and then another button here. So the same format as the above, except that okay, the icon I use here is actually trash, and the class here is edit button, and the class I use here is del button. We need this to identify so that we know what was pressed. Is it the edit button or the delete button? So we place here some sort of class names. And take note, edit btn is the class name for edit because we'll be needing that in our explanation later on. So here, So once we click the edit button, so we have here body, click edit button. So that's the class name. That's why I told you a while ago that we need the edit button class name. So once we click that, then we're going to retrieve the value of the attribute empno, and I have shown you that also a while ago. So let's go back to the previous slide. So you notice I have here an attribute empno. So the value is the current employee number of that particular row, and again, edit button is the class name. So we need to retrieve the value stored in that attribute. Okay, and then we open the modal form. So if the modal form is opened, we can it will display, or once the modal form is open, we can now retrieve the record from the database or our table inside the database using this employee number. That's why URL is getempinfo.php. If you remember, this was discussed in the previous slides, wherein this will retrieve the record of one single record from the table and using employee number as our key. So get empno, so we use the get type, and then empno equals empno. Empno is again the employee number. So if it is successful, the result will be placed here in JSON format, and then we convert that JSON, we parse that JSON string and place it in an object named data. And then we set the mode to 2 because this is for edit. So 2 is for edit, and then we retrieve the data from this. So data 0 empno, ename, depno, salary, commission. So this corresponds to the fields, and this means that this is the first row. And as I've said a while ago, we are only expecting a single row. That's why data 0, that's the first row, because employee number is actually the primary key. Okay, so this is triggered when the edit button is pressed. The code retrieves the employee number attribute, then opens the modal dialog. So modal dialog retrieves the record using getempinfo, and then using the result converted from JSON to array object, populates the control in the form. So here we're populating the controls in the form. Now again, if you're going to view the source code, the ID attribute and the name attribute of the inputs in my form are actually the same. That's why I have here empno, ename, demno, salary. So I'll show you that one here. The ID and the name property or name attributes are actually similar or the same. That's why here this is actually now referring to the ID, not the name, because of the number symbol or hashtag symbol. Then next is we have the jQuery to save or submit the record. So what will happen if we click on the submit button? So here, this will show this program will actually show the information retrieved from the table to the form. So if it is shown in the form, the user can now make some changes because it is displayed on input boxes or whatever user interface was used by the programmer. Then the user can now make some changes, can edit the values, and then after that the user can press the submit button. So once you click the submit button, what will happen? So this one, it will actually retrieve the data from the form and place it in form data. So this is will retrieve the data and place it in the form data object. Then determine the mode, although no need for this because actually you can just remove this one because in the mode is already included in the form data. And then this will now call, so using Ajax, this will call saveemp.php using pause, and then transfer the data from form data to data, and then success or cache. So this will save just like in our insert or adding of records. And then after we insert, we hide our modal form, and then we excuse me then we refresh our employee list because of course we made some changes. Maybe we change the name, we change the salary or whatever. Then it should be reflected on our program. So we just refresh the employee list. That ends the PowerPoint presentation. So let's now try to view the program itself. I will close all, and then I will open the programs used. So I believe I use emp.list demo 3, not emp.list, emp.list. Yes, so this you notice here. So this is emp.list demo 3. So this is our refresh list. So we retrieve the data from emp.list, which was explained again previously, and then using result set, then we just through our code we try to recreate, or we try to generate a string that is equivalent to the table HTML some sort of HTML table. And then here we retrieve each row from the record and then place it inside the cells of the table, and at the last column we place the buttons. So here we display employee number, name, depth, no, salary, com, and then here we display 2 buttons. And again, take note that we place an attribute here, and class here is edit button. So once we have created the table, we just display that table inside list display. And then this one is for search, but that's not included here. So once again, the edit button. So in the edit button, we retrieve the value of the employee number. This is from the attribute or from the button. And then we open the dialog form using Ajax. We run this program, getempinfo, and at the same time passing the employee number. So once we do that, it will retrieve the record and display that particular record in JSON format inside the rest. And from JSON format, we parse that to data and then again display. So I explained that a while ago. So once we click on the submit button, so saveemp. So again, retrieve the data, saveemp, pause form data, and then this will save the data. Then here is now my modal form. This is my controls, user controls, and my employee list and the add button. And also I have my emp.list program. So emp.list connect to the database, use select statement to retrieve the record, execute. So again, you're just using select statement because we're retrieving a list. And then we execute the statement, get the result set and stored in the result, then array. Then we use loop, retrieving each row using fetch assoc, and each row is stored inside the array, and then we convert that array to JSON format. So echo. So if we echo this will be retrieved using res here. That will be retrieved in this program. Where is that list here? So res. So we call that, and then the echo, whatever is the output of the program will be placed here in rest. So anyway, we explained that previously. So emp.list, we also have getempinfo. So again, connect to the database, retrieve the employee number, and then if it is not empty, we retrieve a single record. That's why we use where emp.no equals then the parameter. Then we bind whatever the employee number we retrieve here, and then similar, we execute, get the result set, store the row inside the array, then echo in JSON format. And then we also have the saveemp program. So saveemp, connect to the database, retrieve the values from our form, determine the mode. So if mode is equal to 2, we use the update statement. So I've explained that previously. Prepare the statement, parameter, execute, then save. So to demonstrate this, we have to open our both our web server and our database server. So I'm going to start both. So I have now started, and then what's that? Let's open the program. So localhost web dev amp list demo3.php. That's the name of my program, or the file name. So again, this is my card. Then I have here my add button, and I have here my edit button. So let's say, for example, I want to edit the record of Ivana Alawi, and then I want to change her salary from 15,500 to 15,501, and also maybe I want to change the commission. So I'll just click on this. So again, if you still remember, if you click on this will open a modal dialog and display this record. So there. So the record of Ivana Alawi was now displayed. Then I want to change the salary to 15,501 and the commission to 1,999, for example. So once I click submit, let's check. So Ivana Alawi, the salary now is 15,501 and the commission is 1,999. So our program is working. Okay, so anyway, I'll be placing the link for the source code in the description of this video, so you're free to download. And again, thank you for watching this video.